Sure, you're curious. And is your curiosity always genuine? It's probably difficult to know, right? So let's explore 3 ways that you can learn to rate your curiosity and how genuine it is. I'm Janet Harvey, CEO of Invite Change, and we produce YouTube videos on a weekly basis for coaches and leaders and teams all over the globe. Press the subscribe button now, and then you'll have them always handy for you. Notice your questions. That's the first step of rating your curiosity as genuine or not. So there's lots of easy ways to do this. I prefer being able to take a picture of people and places and things I'm interacting with when I can feel that I'm being curious. And I then text that picture to myself with the questions that I'm thinking about. And at the end of the day, I spend a little time with it, but I'll come back to that. Here's another idea. You can also just use an app where you collect notes. What's important is to collect the questions that are bubbling up for you and not spend any more time on it. Just capture. A third thing you can do is at the end of the day, or maybe at some kind of a regular interval, sit down with your partner or a colleague or a friend and share with them what caught your curiosity today and tell them the questions that you were asking. And then pay attention to what they ask you back. This first step is about building awareness. That's why I say, notice your questions. What are the things that are capturing your attention enough that you're taking that next step to ask a question to learn more? You definitely want to make this an easy and fun task. And I was noticing yesterday my questions that were bubbling up as I looked out my window from my office, and our neighbor down the street has somebody on the roof with no safety equipment. Oh my goodness. Now, I had questions about why are they on the roof? And then I got the binoculars out and I started looking at the side of the house that had been damaged. And that's when I noticed there was no safety line. And then I got to thinking, well, is this person a licensed contractor? And where's their truck? I want to see what company they work for because I sure as heck don't want to hire that company. Now, notice I was fear-based. All of those questions that were coming up were all about whether or not I would put myself in that same compromising position or not. Not necessarily genuine curiosity for the purpose of learning and growth and change, but more in terms of a protection strategy. This goes to the second point, which is now you want to notice your motivation for your curiosity. And this is where it gets a little trickier, and you want to go slow here and be sure that you're making some deliberate time available. So that inventory you did in the first step, however you captured the questions you were asking, you want to spend some time replaying, almost as if you have the movie running in your mind's eye. And let it run in your memory of the situation, the person, the place, or the thing, enough that you can start to feel an emotion, or maybe you have a physical sensation. And you're having a deja vu moment of the questions you were asking. All right, now with that memory firmly in your mind's eye, you want to ask yourself, what was I motivated by? Was I asking questions that I already knew the answer to? To some degree, I knew the questions I was asking about this guy on the roof. I knew darn well he didn't have a safety line on. Therefore, I'm never hiring that company, which is why I'm looking at the truck to figure out what the name of the company is. Again, I'm not doing it because I'm genuinely curious about who he is and what has him have confidence to be up there without a safety line on, and what is his company all about, right? The same situation I can approach with a sense of wonder instead of asking questions as an interrogation. The challenge with interrogation is that it puts us on the defensive. When we're on the receiving end of questions, you know, you've had this experience when somebody starts peppering you with questions and you know darn well they really don't want to know the answer that you're going to give them. They want the answer they want to hear. Bosses make this mistake with their employees all the time. They ask these closed-ended questions. Did you do this? Did you do that? Is it this answer? Is it that answer? Have you considered this? And they've got an agenda and they're not being open and transparent about it. And what do? We bring up the shields and we don't tell them anything. This is how we end up with all kinds of drama in politics and organizational life. But it happens in our family life too. And any of you that have teenagers know this syndrome. So the key to genuine curiosity is that we allow ourselves to ask questions we don't know the answer to. That's what I call unconditional curiosity. No strings attached. I genuinely am interested to know what you see, what you're experiencing, what your perspective is, what's your worldview. What formed the way in which you have an opinion or a perspective happening in this situation, person, place, or thing we're working on together? When I'm asking those kinds of questions, I'm leaning in. I'm allowing space for silence, and I'm allowing the person to finish their own thinking before I ask the next question. So we are in a true conversation, a true dialogue. And I'm not trying to fulfill an agenda or get something from you. I'm genuinely wanting us to engage. So here's the third step. You've done the first two, which is a bit of an inventory. You've now done some reflection and starting to get a sense of the difference when you're motivated from wonder and genuine curiosity. The third step is to start to notice your influence and your impact. And we do that by noticing what happens in the person that's across from us when we're engaged with them in genuine curiosity. Now, this is a little tricky because you're needing to interpret some things. Vocabulary that people use, body language, tone, intensity, pace, emotion. These are all things that coaches are trained to do. And so if some of this sounds familiar, it might be that you're interested in becoming a coach. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Here, the key is to sit down and, again, with a partner or a colleague or a friend, and ask them to describe for you what it's like being with you. Now, be prepared because they might say you're not very genuine. So it might hurt a little bit. But I imagine there are times when they wouldn't be your colleague or friends or partner if they didn't see you as having genuine curiosity. So listen carefully to the way they describe it. Do they say things like, I always want to laugh with you. Like, you just make everything so much fun. Or they'll say, you always let me finish before I finish my thought without interrupting me before you ask your next question. And sometimes it's just fun to sit in silence with you and you'll say something you appreciate about me. So that kind of feedback that you receive from people will give you some clues about what to watch for as you start to change your curiosity to become more genuine. You're looking for the other person across from you to be smiling, to seem relaxed in their body. Maybe they're leaning in when you ask a question. Maybe they say something like, gosh, nobody's ever asked me to share that. I'm very happy to do that with you. So watching for the impact on mood and energy. These are ways that you'll start to know you're becoming more genuine in your curiosity. We have a principle in coaching, and it's really a cornerstone, a foundational component, a principle, if you will. And that is that we perceive and accept every person, that includes you, as whole, resourceful, capable, and innately creative. Now, I'm not talking about that you do things that are resourceful and capable. It's that you have that inside of you, that intrinsically, whatever is necessary for you to meet life, you can access resource and capability within you. And sometimes we forget, right? We get busy and something doesn't go our way, and somehow we start to think less of ourselves. And we're challenged to figure out what we're going to do. When you're with a coach, they're going to say, I know there's more to you than you're bringing to this situation. Let's get a little bit of perspective here and see what's a strength you could be tapping into. So if you want to become more genuine in your curiosity, it requires that you accept yourself as whole, resourceful, capable, and creative, so much more than any circumstance that's challenging you. Step into being curious without any strings attached. Go feed your sense of wonder with people, places, and things that are challenging you. And you'll begin to see that you have a pathway forward. Maybe after listening to this, you say to yourself, I'm pretty genuine in my curiosity. And If you want to see what it looks like when a coach is being curious, watch some of the YouTube demos that we have available for you with coaches of all different styles. And maybe you'll get inspired to become a coach. We'd love to see you.